So as we do come today together to our time in the Scriptures, we are going to jump to Romans. I couldn't help but jump there anyway. I know we're going to be there here in just a little while, but we'll be a while before we get to this passage. One of the reasons I picked this passage today is that it is one of the things that my father and I have in common, that it is one of our favorite passages in the Bible. And so we're going to be turning to Romans 8, starting in verse 31. So if you've got your Bibles this morning, if you would turn there, and I'll do my best to keep up on the screen with the Scripture as well. But if you would turn to Romans 8 this morning as we look here, we're going to be looking at God's everlasting love. We're going to be looking at God the Father and how through the Son He has given us this love, that He has made us more than conquerors, that He's given us this thing that we cannot be separated from. And so as I thought about this today, and as we often do when we come to these certain times of year, when we've got these special days, whether it's Mother's Day or Father's Day or different holidays throughout the year, we take time to stop and to reflect and to think about not only these important people in our lives and these important days in our lives, but also what does God have to say about these things? What does God have to teach us about how we either interact with fathers, with our fathers, or with maybe your children as a father, and also as ones that maybe have lost their fathers, or maybe even lost the fathers of their children. How can we encourage other fathers? How can we encourage young fathers and children to respect and to acknowledge and to know what their fathers mean to them? And so as we look here in Romans 8:31, this is kind of the closing of a passage, and we'll see that when we do study this more in depth. But Paul is saying here, he says in verse 31, "What then shall we say to these things? If God is for us, who can be against us?" Now right there, that verse alone should be awfully encouraging, right? If God is for us, who can be against us? And we hear that, and we hear this, and it's not like this is the first time you've ever heard this verse. I'm sure you've heard it many times before. But when we are in times of uncertainty, when we are in times of struggle, when we are in times that are hard, we can hear this verse, and we can again be encouraged. Because we're going to see here in these next few verses, these things. He says, okay, what can we say to these things? Who can be against us? And then he tells us some of the people that can be against us. And we'll look and we'll be encouraged that even these people, these things that can be against us, cannot stop God. And so as we continue on, he says, in verse 32 here, he says, "He who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how will he not also with him graciously give us all things?" He says, look, God did not even keep his own son. He did not even spare his own son from the cross, from the death that he went to give us freedom. How, if he was willing to give up his own son, how will he not also give us these other things that we need? And so as we think about this, we think about the love that God has for us, and the devotion that he has for us, and this love that is unconditional. This love that he loves us so much that he was willing to give his only son. That he was willing to give of the thing that should mean so much. And so as we see this example of sacrifice. We see this example of love, this unconditional love. And we think maybe back to our own fathers, and everyone has a different experience with their father. There may be some out there that did not have a good experience with your own father. And that's something that is hard, and something that we come to, and it's something that it can be difficult when we explain the gospel. It can be something that can be difficult when we explain passages like this. For those that have had trouble with their fathers, and as we look at the world today, and we see many who go through life without a father, or go through life with a father that is distant, or go through life with a father that is not close, or that does not love them in this way. It can be hard to explain these things. It can be hard to make ones that have had issues understand what is going on with this passage, with these thoughts that we have on God the Father. But one thing that we want to make clear is that we see God the Father here, one that is all-powerful, one that is over all things, one that has created all things. And we see here that his love for us is great, that he is willing to sacrifice for us. And so we see here, and hopefully many of you have some of the same things in your life that I had. A father that was devoted. A father that was willing to work hard. A father that even though he worked hard was still there most nights for supper. A father that was still there to help you go to bed. A father that was still there to help you along the way. To give you guidance. To give you strength. And hopefully you had a father that would point you to the Heavenly Father. And as I said, one of the reasons I picked this passage is because of my own father. And so as we continue on, let us look here to see who would bring these things against us. Who would bring these things against God? But also seeing how God is still right there with us. And so as we continue, it says, who shall bring any charges against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Who is to condemn? Christ Jesus is the one who died, more than that, who was raised, who is at the right hand of God, who is indeed interceding for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress, or persecution or famine, or nakedness or danger or sword? And so it says here, we see these different things. What can come against God? And we see here that it says that these things can come. What can come against us? It gives us examples. Tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword. These things that we see come against us. These things that we know that when we come to God we are not automatically protected from happening. And I feel like we do a good job of announcing that, proclaiming that here, is that just because we come to God doesn't mean that we're going to get everything that we ever wanted. Just because we come to God doesn't mean that he's going to give us all these things that we think that we need. But instead what it does say is that he is going to be there, and that nothing can separate us, even these things that come against us. So even when Satan and his enemies, even our own thoughts that can get in our way, nothing can separate us from him. We'll see that as we continue on. And so as we look here in this passage, as we've been in the Psalms, this next bit here quotes the Psalms. Psalm 44 is what Paul is quoting here. And it says, we just listed these things that will come against us. But he says, for your sake, we are being killed all day long, and we are regarded as sheep to be slaughtered. And so he worries, is this the way that we feel? Is this the way that we have come to know God in our existence? When we have these tribulations come, when we have these trials come against us, when we have distress or persecution or famine or danger or even the sword, do we, like the psalmist there, do we dismay? Are we worried? Are we scared? But instead, let us look to what Paul's answer here is in Romans and what we can do to think more about God and his love for us. And Paul says here, he says, no, in all things we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. He says, no, we are not sheep just being led to the slaughter. When these things happen, when these things come against us, no, instead we are more than conquerors. And it doesn't say that we are more than conquerors because we are tough, and we are more than conquerors because we figured out how to be manly, or we figured out how to be something more on our own. But no, it says we are more than conquerors through him who loved us. This is our answer. We are more than conquerors not because of what we have done, not because of who we are, but because of who loves us. And as we continue in this passage, again, it comes and says even more about what can come between us. And in verse 38 it says, for I am sure that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. There is nothing that can come between us and God's love. There is nothing that can separate us from the sacrifice that Christ made upon the cross. There is nothing that can get in our way. There is nothing that can pull us away from that sacrifice as we come to Him. There will be plenty of things that try to get in our way. There will be plenty of things, probably every day, that try to get in our way. And it seems like, as we've mentioned already today during our prayer time, there's all these things going on around us that can seem to try and get in our way. There's all these things that we have going on around us as we look, and maybe we are worried or preoccupied or not sure what to think or what to do with the pandemic that goes on around us. We have been in our homes and separated somewhat from one another, but in that separation we were never separated from God. There was nothing that could have happened during that time that separated us from the love of God. We don't have to be gathered together. We don't have to be gathered in this place to know the love of God. And it is great to be able to gather together and to gain strength from one another and to gain strength from His Word and hearing it together. But again, nothing can separate us. And as we look at the unrest in our country and we look at the separation that we see, and as we look, and it's nothing new. We've seen that this is kind of the world, that the way the world has become, that there is division no matter where we look. That oftentimes it seems like you have to be on one side or the other. No matter what that decision is, whether that's something simple, and this one actually is true as far as, baseball finally is still not on, but there is one side of this equation that's the right side, and that's the Cubs-Cardinals side. And obviously, if the Cubs side is right, and if you like the Cardinals, I'm sorry, you're wrong. So it's even simple things like that, but we don't want to divide. And I even have family members that I love dearly that are on the wrong side of the equation. They were able to be the ones that were able to put us down for quite a while, but the tables have turned a little bit. But even in these things, we see division, and that's a jokingly division, but there are ones that take that far more seriously than they should. And small things like that. And maybe I think in this time of this pandemic, we've seen that as some of those other things fall away, what the important things are to us. As we've been separated from most others, we see more and more that family is so important. Whether that's the family that you live with, or the family that you've been born into, or the family that you consider yourself a part of. And we see these things that are putting us together, and we see, again, this division. We see that you have to be on one side or the other, it seems. But as here we see in this passage, as we see in these ideas, as we come together, there is but one side that we truly want to be worried about being on. And that is the side of God, the side of His love. And the side of this story here that we see that there is nothing that can come against us, that there is nothing that can separate us, that there is nothing that can pull us away from Him and His love. And as we see division, as we see those that seek to divide, that seek to separate, let us remember what we see here, and that is that God is love. And that God's love we cannot be separated away from. And that God's love is not clean and easy, that God's love is messy. That God's love took death upon the cross to bring salvation. That God's love still allows us to be tempted. That God's love still allows trials and things to come against us. But God's love is great. And God's love is what makes us confident. And so as we look and we see division, as we look and we see troubling times, let us be ones that have unity with Christ. Let us be ones that have unity with one another. Let not the things of this world separate us. divide us. But let us look to be